Will there be panic in the streets, societal collapse, or will we all be rich if this metal goes up to $100 an ounce? We'll try to answer that question in this video as we explore. What I love about this community is there's some good questions that are asked, but there's also some good insight that you, the viewers, give, and you inspire me to be able to provide content and to answer some of your questions. So this question is a very good one by Jeff Norrod. I'm going to read his comment because I think it's important to understand what would happen if silver were to hit $100 per ounce. But of course, there's some other follow-up questions that we have to ask. So I'm going to attempt to ask and answer those as well as we go through this topic. But before we get there, I want to remind you that silver is not $100 an ounce and likely will not get there anytime soon. But nonetheless, the silver that is available for a lot cheaper is at summitmetals.com. They have a great selection, a widening selection of both stackable silver as well as collectible. So check them out and elevate your wealth with Summit Metals. So this is what the question is. What will happen to the economy and especially consumers if silver goes to $100 or maybe even $200 per ounce, asked Jeff Norrod. What would it do to the industrial side, which includes solar panels, AI, computers? What kind of impact will it have on those? What would it do to brick and mortar coin shops? And the real question, not that those others are not real because they're very good questions, is what about everyday consumers? What will it look like for us? And he's not heard anybody address this. So he's wondering if this will help everybody or will it hurt everyone? Well, the thing that you're leaving out here is when it would hit $100 an ounce, how fast it would get there. And really, I'm going to give you the short answer to this question. And that question applies to both scenarios, temporally and the impact on everything. And the short answer is nothing. Nothing. That's right. It will have no impact on the economy or consumers at the very beginning of a move to the upside. And the thing is here's the case where if it was to spike up dramatically, if it were to go up within a couple of weeks to $100 per ounce, and that's probably still a very wild scenario, but let's say it does, it just moves up there in a couple of weeks. Well, it's still enough time that people are preparing, and I think in that sense, that's where the panic is going to set in, and the panic will set in, and it will not be good, by the way, if silver moves up to $100 in a few weeks, because coin shops are going to get inundated with it at $40 an ounce and $45 an ounce. And by the way, I'm predicting $41 an ounce by the end of the year. We'll see if that happens. But I still think that even if we gradually move up to $41 an ounce, you're going to see more selling than buying. And we're still in that market right now where stackers are letting go of part of their stacks and taking profits and leaving because they're frustrated with the stagnancy of silver that has been around in the last decade. But nonetheless, I think that stagnancy is over, and I think we're starting to see some good moves. But a healthy silver market would reach $100 an ounce, but not in a couple of weeks. And so I think that worst case scenario, and I think that really would be the worst case scenario, is silver reaching $100 in a few weeks, would cause coin shops maybe potentially to refuse, even more so than they already are now, buying your silver. They just aren't going. They've got so much of it, they're not going to buy it, and we see a whole heck of a lot of it being melted down to meet that industrial demand, whatever is driving it, and it's obviously too soon to see recycling occur, so they're going to have to melt it down from coins, and we're talking about even collectible coins. Any of that stuff is going to go in. The collectible market is probably going to get hit the hardest because you're just going to be selling it for spot. So if you buy a $100 piece of silver, 1 ounce silver round or bar or coin, I'm going to show you one of those, by the way, right now. And this is a coin that costs about $120, and it is a gold-plated silver Star Trek thing. It's really kind of cool. Paid about $120 for it. So I could take this at $100 silver and sell it back to my coin shop. They're going to give me less than spot for it. I may be lucky if I got $90 for it, okay? So I've lost money on it right out of the gate for this collectible piece of silver. And it likely would be melted down. This kind of stuff is going to be very, very difficult to be able to get any kind of collector value out of it. It's just not going to matter. So in that way, there would be panic in that regard. And in terms of the silver that's going to be used for solar panels in the industrial side, well, it'll have a nominal impact. In other words, not as great of an impact as you may think, because that stuff will still be used in all of those items and devices. And if the price of those goods, by the way, will not go up. Let me just emphasize that again. The price of those items will not go up as much as you may think it will. I read somewhere recently, and I find this hard to believe, but I'm going to trust this statistic, that there's really only about an ounce or so of silver in the electronics for a vehicle. That's not including some of the battery technology, some of the stuff where it is right now. But let's say that's the case. Let's say there's only an ounce. Or something I do know, there's about 20 grams of silver in each solar panel. So if the price of silver goes up $100, well, that's a nominal impact on the overall price of that panel. You see what I'm saying? In other words, there's a lot of silver being used overall, but there's very little silver in each of the components we're talking about. And so there's that idea. Now, the Samsung silver batteries, that is a technology. If they consume a whole heck of a lot more silver, up to a kilo for those batteries, well, that's a different matter. And but even if a kilo of silver is used in some of the items that we have, that's really it's going to raise the price of it, but not as much to be able to squelch the demand for it too much. That is the thing that a lot of people have to keep in mind with regards to price of goods and services because of a higher silver spot price. And remember, some places are buying unrefined silver, like China's buying a lot of unrefined silver and refine it themselves. And in a sense, the industrial side really is more about supply and demand and the cost of acquisition of that silver. So think about it this way: all-in sustaining cost of mining silver is not anywhere near the spot price these days. In fact, some say there's a byproduct of other metals, and that is only about between $9 and $15, maybe $20 now in some of the latest numbers. So that is really your true cost. The silver spot price may not have as big of an impact with regards to that. And so in a sense, it could really kind of increase their profit margins, which means in order to be competitive, you may be able to buy it with very little impact, much less impact than the spot price. So that's something to keep in mind as well, too. For us consumers who want to buy silver, well, that's going to be a big impact for us. But nonetheless, you will look into a whole lot more fractional silver, and constitutional silver, I think, will be something we'll see more demand for stackers to accumulate, such as this Franklin half dollar. You're going to get pieces like this or dimes where you'll be able to accumulate silver and have it in your stack at a much cheaper price, because some of this stuff I think will still go for spot or maybe even a little less than spot price. And I still think that some people will stack, but there won't be as much stacking going on. That's this silver going up in a couple of weeks to $100 an ounce from where it is now. And so there will be some of that. Now, what could lead it to go up to $100 an ounce? It really does depend on as to how much panic there's going to be in that regard. And I think that likely economic, geopolitical shocks, it's not necessarily so much the impact of the silver price going up, but those other economic and geopolitical shocks that are going to have a much greater effect. Silver is immaterial with regards to what caused the price of silver to go up. So in that regard, very little. Now, let's talk about the long-term proposition for silver reaching $100 per ounce. And that is, the answer to that question is still, and even more so, nothing. Because it will have just as much of an impact at $100 an ounce as was the case when I started stacking at around $5 per ounce. That's right. I've been buying silver since it was about $5 an ounce or a little bit less than that. And and no change. In other words, if you go through time, let's say 5, 10, maybe 20 years from now, it reaches $100 an ounce, well, you have inflation. And your silver is moving up with inflation and other economic factors and other factors that we can adjust to. Well, that's a lot of time. Up to 20 years is a lot of time to be able to adjust for the markets and inflation and the cost of goods and services. Silver is just another one of those goods that services us. And by the way, yes, there's still going to be a lot of demand for it. And some people feel that we have gone up to peak silver mining. So the actual supply that is used for industry and technology and the medical field will cause a problem. And that is maybe one of the reasons why silver's price could also go up to that amount of $100 per ounce. But so, yeah, I do think that for everyday consumers and in a long-term scenario, local coin shops, I think will adjust. And just as they have adjusted from when it was $5 an ounce to now trading around $38, $39 an ounce. So anytime you add more time to it, it gives society more time to adjust. And if it were to skyrocket to $100 an ounce in a matter of days, well, I think it would be too quick, much too quick, and to be able to have any kind of impact in terms of the market. The spot price goes up. I think in a sense you may see a plunge in buying of silver, physical silver, and I honestly do think that there are going to be some dealers that are going to have below spot deals. I'm talking about 10, 15% below spot. You buy your silver now. It's at $100 now. It's going to go up even more because they hedge and they want to move product because they're going to get a lot of it in. They're going to be selling it at 10 to 20% below spot price, which is still much higher than where it is now. Maybe even more. It really depends. We've never been here before, but I predict that could happen. We could see dealers start to sell silver 10, 20% below spot price just to move it, just to keep it going in order to make money. That's the kind of market we might live in if silver spot price was to rise that much in a couple of days, and maybe even in a couple of weeks. I could still see that scenario playing out. So I hope that answered your question. It would be an unusual situation, obviously, in the short term. In the long term, 10, 20 years from now, I think we'll just adjust. So I hope you found this video informative, insightful, and educational. Would like to extend a multitude of gratitude to each and every one of you for taking the time to watch and to encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.